And I don't know if anyone's looked at the sheet and seen this, but Adam does not pick his prospects well.
The question is, does Max make the playoffs if he doesn't sell?
Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the first and hopefully last episode of the Fuck the Nats podcast.
That's the thing. It's like when you're me and like you know that you're a fucking idiot, stick with Christian Vasquez and he will lead my team in steals again.
The memories that come to the surface most clearly are me sorting my baseball cards one way one night and then completely redoing them the next night.
Actually, I'm going to reframe this. JD, why don't you start by talking about Dylan Beavers?
Apologies, I couldn't hear your question because the audio went out.
Hello, FTN world. This podcast is brought to you by Mr. Met and Noel today. Today is trade deadline day, which is now over, and we will be discussing what went on in the baseball world and some farm systems, including FTN's love of the White Sox. Mr. Met, how are we feeling today?
We're feeling great. I actually don't even know if we made any moves. I think I saw Grimace in the stands, though, today, and I think we won 2-0. So overall, good day for Metsdom. I don't know. How are the Rockies? What did they do today?
The Rockies are neither contending nor rebuilding. They're just kind of sitting still. The only notable trade was a relief pitcher, Jalen Beeks. That's about it. It's pretty depressing to be a Rockies fan, but that's what's going on. Some other teams did make moves, which I think we should probably talk about now.
Well, there were certainly a flurry of trades, although maybe the best actual player traded on deadline day today was Jack Flaherty, which came minutes before the deadline. And look, we could talk about this, and I think we should, but I do want to say that we're all baseball fans here, and I'm sure every single one of us in the league has watched some sort of baseball show today or podcast or wherever you get your baseball news. And I'm sure every publication today has begun their talk and recap of the deadline with Jack Flaherty. So maybe to be different, let's not start with Jack Flaherty. Let's actually go somewhere else for a second. And let's talk about, we got some Mariners fans. The Mariners went and acquired a lot of bullpen help. And there's been some rumblings in the league that, maybe FTN doesn't respect the art of the relief pitcher. When we think about our own trade deadline in FTN, there were not a lot of relief pitcher trades around the deadline. I forget if there were maybe a couple last year. But by and large, we don't see too many relief pitcher trades. And the MLB, it's a totally different story. And the Mariners walk away, I think a couple new toys in the bullpen. And then they made a couple trades leading up to deadline day to get Randy Arozarena was the big one, but then also I believe Justin Turner. So what do you think, JD? I think maybe the Mariners more than any other team could have maybe moved their needle in the playoff race a little bit, only because anyone who's even remotely a baseball fan knows that the Mariners can pitch with literally any team in baseball. They might be the best pitching team in baseball, but their offense was letting them down. They addressed that, and then they added some bullpen guys today. If you're a Mariners fan, how do you feel right now? How do you feel if you're Jacob and Jack?
I feel like the Mariners' problem, I mean, bullpen was a need, but like, I feel like their problem has been hitting, and they didn't really address that. Are they World Series contenders? I don't know if they are this year. I do think. Sorry, I do think that they're going to be competing for that division. Wild card, they'll be in that hunt too. Is like their pitching's fine, so sure they address that need. But can pitching carry you if you can't hit? I don't think so. Sorry.
Are you not a Randy guy then? Because like they added Randy, they added Justin Turner.
I mean, sure, that's an improvement on what they have, but Arozarena's had a down year, and does he move the needle? I don't know if he bounces back.
Let's maybe discuss what happens if he does bounce back, because the other acquisition for the Mariners over the past month or so has been, I believe it was off of waivers, Victor Robles, who I believe is hitting over 300 and looks like a renewed man in Seattle, which is not often the case for offensive players. I bet Jack and Jacob both listen to a lot of Mariners pods and get some pretty inside biased takes. From a third party take here, as somebody who roots for an NL Central team, I got no dog in this race, and I don't follow the Mariners as close as those guys. But my outsider perspective here is Randy can be a difference maker. He's been a difference maker in the playoffs before. And with Julio not up to his standards and I believe injured now, Randy and Victor Robles add some literal dynamism to a team that for pretty much I feel like my entire life has lacked it.
I mean, the baseline has improved. These guys that they added are definitely better than what they had before. So for sure, there's nowhere to go but up.
I'm pretty sure. Go ahead.
Me personally, like, I'm not really that big of a Justin Turner fan anymore. Is Robles' production sustainable? I mean, we'll see, but I don't know if he can continue hitting 300.
No, but let's say he hits 255. I feel like that's still an upgrade over what they were getting before.
Right, yeah.
And, you know what's interesting is I think in FTN, we are having some Randy Arozarena trade rumors as well. Now, recall, Randy was a off-season acquisition by Vinny, trading Luis Castillo to Jack. And now I wonder, I don't think Jack regrets that at all, but I wonder if Jack, it's interesting, Jack being a Mariners fan trades the guy who just got traded now to the Mariners. And I just wonder if we had this trade, if our FTN trade deadline was after the MLB trade deadline, if Jack would have tried to re-pursue Randy back from Vinny.
I mean, that's a good question. It's kind of like the real life Ahmed Rosario situation. The Dodgers acquired him last year at the trade deadline, and then they acquire him this year at the trade deadline. Arozarena coming back home to the Mariners. Would Jack trade for Arozarena again? Just because he's a Mariner, I don't see why he wouldn't. I don't know if it would involve Castillo again. Obviously, it would have to be another piece in lieu of Castillo here.
Jack did make an outfield acquisition at the deadline. He acquired Anthony Santander, which, you know what? Honestly, there might not be a more comparable piece in terms of value. Only because I think Santander might be 1 or 2 years older, and I think he's just simply not quite as popular as Randy, but he's having a much better season. So I think in terms of value, they're actually very similar. And I think Santander obviously is the better play rest of this season, if not necessarily for the future. So interesting all around. But I'm happy you brought up Ahmed Rosario, because let's go and talk about everyone's favorite team, the Dodgers, who it's interesting, right? Because they did get Ahmed Rosario, but it was right after they went and they got Tommy Edman. For those of you who don't know, because you don't follow the Cardinals like I do, Tommy Edman has been injured the whole season. He hasn't played. He's been sitting on Perry's bench. He can play near Gold Glove defense at every defensive position. It sounds exactly like the glue guy that the Dodgers need. However, he's appeared in 14 rehab games over the past couple weeks, and he has started at DH in all of them. So it's no certainty that Tommy Edman will even be playing the field for the Dodgers when he comes back. This may be a situation of Ahmed Rosario this year, and then Tommy Edman can DH a little bit this year for them, but then next year Tommy Edman kind of slots into the mix somewhere for the Dodgers. JD, talk a little bit about these infield acquisitions before we talk about the big fish they landed at the end of the day.
Yeah, the Dodgers have they're going through some injury problems right now. And then the bottom of their lineup has been less than ideal. Mookie's hurt. Muncy, who knows if he'll even be back this year. Pages started off really hot in the majors, but last 2 months or so, he's just not been that guy, honestly.
It's like Outman. They keep
same thing with Outman. Outman was competing for Rookie of the Year last year, and this year we obviously saw him sent down at AAA, called back up. He's not really performing.
As much as we give the Dodgers farm system credit, and they've produced some pitchers, there's not a lot of offensive guys in the last few years that they've seemed to, maybe they come up, and even if they start hot, but even if they don't, there's guys like Miguel Vargas that were great in the minors, and once they got to the majors, they never hit. And then guys like Outman, Pages, Lux may have some hot streaks from time to time, but nothing sustainable. Guys can't make adjustments. What do you think?
Gavin Lux, former #1 prospect in baseball, had obviously the injury about a year ago kind of hindered him. I mean, he's batting third in the lineup now for the Dodgers, just because they really have no one else to put up there. Freeman obviously is out for a bit because of personal reasons. It's basically like Ohtani, Teoscar, and then even Will Smith has been cold. That's about it for their hitting. I mean, what they went out and did with grabbing Edman, grabbing Rosario, even grabbing Kevin Kiermaier, it's like they're trying to elevate their bottom line, but the bottom line is just so low that you just hope that just any marginal improvement will help.
Well, I agree with everything that you're saying, because it is, you think the Dodgers just have endless upon endless reserves of talent, but they are having to dig in to, first of all, their prospects, not to just pull up players, but dig into their prospects to trade for established players, all the ones that you just kind of named. A couple guys in their farm, though, because, again, it doesn't seem like they've actually produced a quality hitting prospect in a few years now. Dalton Rushing probably isn't up this year. And then I think you said Hunter Freducia may have been called up.
He was called up. He's on the 40-man, and they basically need him to hit as, like, I don't know if he's playing like first baseman a little bit. Basically, he was already on the 40 man, and they just needed someone to hit. So, yep,
So
he was promoted.
he's a catcher. He's a catcher. Dalton
Yes.
Rushing's a catcher, and Diego Cartaya is a catcher. And that's probably their three best offensive prospects that are anywhere close to the majors. The other one was Trey Sweeney, and he was just traded out today. So I guess bottom line, the Dodgers might not be trusting their prospects at the moment on an offensive front. So they just traded a bunch of guys away and like, screw it, we're going to get established major leaguers. And they're trying to paper over these holes that you described.
There's nothing wrong with trading away prospects. Prospects are a complete unknown, as I think everyone in this league would agree. You can get anything with them. And I think the Dodgers are just selling based off of how the rest of the league perceives their prospects to be, which is a top-tier farm system. Not one or two, but top 5, top 10 farm system easily in the MLB.
So from the, I guess we can talk for 1 second if you really want to, but I'm sure everyone's heard opinions on the Jack Flaherty trade by now. I think one thing I'll just note is that this is pretty irrelevant from an FTN perspective. No offense to Perry, he's out of the race, and Flaherty is still on that team. This doesn't move the needle in FTN for anyone. So I think we could, if you're not in the know, you might say, oh, well, Perry gets Flaherty on the Dodgers next year. But that's just simply not the case because Flaherty's contract, he signed a 1-year deal in the offseason. And so, yeah, he will be a total free agent this year. Who knows where he will go? He might re-sign in LA. He's from Los Angeles, as I'm sure everyone has heard by now. But yeah, so I just don't think it's an impactful move for FTN. Much more impactful. It might have been
impactful if our trade deadline was after the MLB trade deadline. Are you surprised Perry didn't move Flaherty before the FTN trade deadline?
I thought he was the most obvious trade candidate on the roster, assuming no one was buying the relief pitching. I think the relief pitching, I think a month ago, he could have gotten good prices on AJ Minter, but unfortunately, the Braves just don't look as good, and people, I think, are out on Braves relief pitching this year. Then
Perry's
Alvarado, he's a Brave. He wasn't going to trade him anyway. I think he had a chance to trade Alvarado for the Phillies because he plays on the Phillies, but he now has an over 4 ERA. He's not been great. I just think the time passed. Same thing with Joel Payamps. Like, I don't think anyone's buying him. So I think the one guy that Perry could have really sold at this deadline was Flaherty. He kept him. And it's not like Flaherty's on a contract like he is in real life. Perry will bring him back next year, and he'll hopefully sign with the best situation possible in real life, which should hopefully be a good situation for Perry. So yeah, I don't know. So what's their rotation, JD? Because I know River Ryan's now been called up for a couple starts for Ben in his last gasp playoff effort, but it's not like Ben notices. He's so clueless these days. It actually makes me upset sometimes.
I'm still stunned he has not caught up River Ryan. But the rotation right now, it's going to be Glasnow, Kershaw, Flaherty, and then presumably Stone, and then Robleski and or Ryan. I don't know if they'll stick with this 6-man rotation.
When's Yamamoto back?
Yamamoto's coming back soon. I think it's sometime in August, right?
You would think Stone would. The only reason, are you saying Stone might not be because of an innings limitation?
I don't know how they view Stone, Robleski, Ryan in terms of that pecking order. I think Stone stays as the starter, and one of Robleski or Ryan, probably Ryan, moves to kind of like a multi-innings guy. But they also did just acquire the likes of Kopech. So like I don't know how Kopech fits into it if they view him as like an innings eater because they shipped out Ryan Yarbrough, or if they view Kopech as like just a solid 1 inning pitcher. Yeah, and Landon Knack was sent down to AAA. Who knows if he'll even be back by the end of the year? And if Knack gets called up, I'm assuming it's to be a multi-innings guy and not to be a starter now that Flaherty is there.
With all these young guys that they might want to manage innings for, it almost felt like Garrett Crochet could have been the perfect candidate for a piggyback role with any of these guys for the rest of the season and going into the playoffs. And the Dodgers could have just thrown 1, 2, 3 starters in the playoffs, and then whenever they needed multi-inning guys, or even for like a game 4 somewhere, they could just piggyback. They could get 3 innings of Crochet, 3 innings of Gavin Stone, and 3 innings of Landon Knack, or 2 of Knack and 1 of Kopech, whatever it might be. But my point is,
instead of having a bullpen day, you would just have like a 3 times 3 day.
100%. Now I think the overarching but like kind of thought coming out of today when it comes to players that didn't move is that Garrett Crochet was the largest name and most surprising name that didn't move. So he stays with the White Sox. And there's friction there. I read some comments from the GM today. They weren't happy with the way the Crochet and his agent approached the last week with some comments that were made from their camp. What about from an FT? Because no one cares about what's happening in real life with the White Sox. You're the owner of Garrett Crochet and FTN.
Yep.
I'm sure you can't be pleased with this turn of events.
Not at all. I mean, you mentioned it on the podcast with Graydon, the last podcast, and if anyone hasn't listened to it, please check out Drew's YouTube page. It's on there. But Crochet is for sure going to be on an innings limit, which hinders his ceiling come FTN playoff time. I believe it's his last 4 games. He's only gone 4 innings or fewer. So we are already in innings limits for Crochet to where I'm probably getting a solid 3 to 4 innings every week, and that's about it. Is it a waste of a roster spot? No, if he's efficient during those outings. But it's just, you just have to deal with it at this point. He's not droppable. We're past the trade deadline, and I think he's still a solid dynasty pitcher to have going forward. It's just he's on a losing organization.
And he will be. He'll be a White Sox next year, at least until next year's trade deadline.
Right, and they are committed to not winning games right now.
That farm system's a mess. Is there any...
My thinking is we saw the haul that the Marlins got for trading away just to relieve 2 relievers in Tanner Scott and Brian Hoeing. And the haul was 3 Padres prospects in the top 5. And then I think another prospect in the 20s. So imagine how much the White Sox were asking for teams for a haul for Crochet. It's probably a lot more than that.
Wow.
So
there was still no top 100 prospect traded today. It's not like the prices were all that much for teams. If they really wanted to go out and get Crochet, I can't imagine it would have cost more than a couple of top 100 prospects, which is not that much.
And or the contract extension that he allegedly wanted.
Why not give it to him? Literally, why not give it to him? Like,
That's a great question. Maybe they're hesitant on if his performance is sustainable in the long term. How many innings can he actually throw? I mean, he's already at a career high, and we have quite a ways to go.
I don't know. The whole thing confuses me. The White Sox as an organization confuses me. Let's talk about for 1 second. Let's talk about for 1 second FTN perspective. Most interesting prospects moved today. Any of them stick out? Good, bad, new situation? Like anything stick out to you in terms of FTN farm system movement today or yesterday?
Let's just go. Yeah, I need to go through some of these trades. So Lorenzo and Sweeney from the Dodgers to the Tigers is interesting. Tigers just promoted Dylan Dingler to the majors. That's a shout out Adams catcher and fellow Buckeye. And then Sweeney is interesting because he plays shortstop. 24 hours ago, Vinny won a bid for Bryce Rayner. Kevin McGonigal plays in that middle infield as well, and he's one of the prospects that's gaining a lot of steam this year in terms of how well he's performed. And then Jace Young also plays second. So interesting that the Tigers are shoring up that middle infield there.
McGonigal can play first. Javi Baez can be. I don't. You just don't play him. Like he just sucks so hard.
He's done.
So that clears up 2 spots because it's not like Torkelson's there in the answer. So McGonigal can be first. Rayner is 4 years away anyhow.
Right. Yep.
So I won't even factor him in. Second base and third, you put Jace at second base because who's there now? Veerling? And who's at third base? Colt Keith?
I really don't know.
Colt
Is Henry
Keith,
Malloy playing third?
Where's Colt Keith? Second? Third?
Oh. Keith? I don't know. Third?
The Tigers got spots for these guys. It's just a shitty offensive environment.
It's interesting that Sweeney has gone from Yankees to Dodgers to Tigers within a year.
So depressing for Trey Sweeney stockholders.
The Marlins, obviously, we just mentioned. So they get Robbie Snelling, Adam Major, Graham Pauley. Those are the 3 notable FTN prospects in that farm. I mean, the Marlins farm, they're top. They're loaded in terms of pitching prospects now, if there is such a thing. I don't know if there is such a thing as pitching prospects. But you're looking 2026-ish, a rotation of Noble Meyer, Thomas White, Max Meyer, Robbie Snelling, and Adam Major. Are you excited about that if you're a Marlins fan?
Well, no.
I didn't even mention any of their current pitchers.
I was going to say, no, I'm not excited if you give me that rotation. I'd be like, where the hell is Yuri Perez? Where the hell is Sandy?
Yeah, right. So you like I said, I didn't even mention their current guys. They're loading up on pitchers, so they got deeper in that regard. Your boy Dax Fulton there too. He's forgotten.
He is. There's a lot of forgotten prospects down in Miami.
Graham Pauley, he made opening day, right?
He
For the
did.
Padres.
He and Yaka Marcy were prime arrow up guys in the Padres farm last year. They both find themselves here. I'm pretty sure Marcy's been traded twice this year already. I don't know. I thought they were exciting, and now they both suck apparently this year. But they're going to have opportunities there. They're both very close to the majors. They could provide value. Look, who are going to be the Marlins' 3, 4, 5 hole hitters? The next year and a half. It's probably going to be these guys. Like
Shout out Xavier Edwards.
right, if he can produce there, these other guys can produce.
So the other trade being adding the acquisitions of Norby and Stowers from the Orioles. The Marlins are setting up for a young future, and I forgot about Agustin Ramirez from the Yankees as well.
That's that. You just named their 1 through 7 hole hitters in 2025.
Yep. It might be an exciting time if you're a Marlins fan. Just a lot of young talent going through, and you're just going to play all the young guys.
Yeah, don't confuse this, Jack, and anyone else who may do so. JD and I aren't saying exciting because they're going to win games. It's exciting because it's young guys.
It's young guys.
young prospects.
Someone I also forgot to mention, Davison De Los Santos. Oh my God, I remember this conversation earlier this year. It was you and I think maybe Graydon arguing about him when they were on the Guardians. But
legendary Rule 5 draft pick, Davison De Los Santos.
So he has 30 home runs this year in the minors, but I think his K rates are above 30% too. So he's basically, is he going to strike out or is he going to hit a home run? Who knows?
That's just the modern day MLB play. If you hit 30 home runs, but you have a 25% K rate, you're a good player. If you hit 30 home runs and have a 30% K rate, you're a terrible player. There's a magic number between a 25 and a 30% K rate where GMs start to say you're either really bad no matter what else you do, or you're good. It's just, I think it's very dumb, personally. I think if you're hitting 30 home runs, I don't care how many Ks you get. I also hate that style of play, but we're getting off topic a little bit. But I hear you, JD, on Davison De Los Santos. There are openings all over that roster because they traded Jazz Chisholm. What does Jazz do going to the Yankees? This has got to be a godsend for a desperate Sean trying to make the playoffs in FTN, but it also helps the Yankees in real life.
He's an exciting player right now, and it's a great time to be a Yankees fan. For the last, 48 hours, 72 hours?
They made that big move signing Brett Phillips on a minor league deal to be a pitcher. Remember Brett Phillips?
I do remember Brett Phillips. I think a lot of people in this league will remember Brett Phillips. Yeah. Speaking of outfielders, what are the Orioles doing here? So
they called up Jackson Holiday.
They called up
Jackson an hour Holiday. After the deadline.
They trade away Connor Norby. But here they are at the deadline acquiring DH Eloy and outfielder Austin Slater, who... Why are they acquiring Eloy and Austin Slater when I feel like there's better guys already on their team and or farm that need playing time?
Well, all right. So Eloy can platoon at DH with Ryan O'Hearn. So that's going to happen. Mountcastle was widely speculated that he might be shopped, but he wasn't, so he's still there. So with
Kobe Mayo stocks down. It does not look like Kobe Mayo is being called up imminently at all.
I think that's the thing. They filled a DH hole with Eloy. They didn't make a hole by trading Mountcastle. And now they called up Jackson Holiday. So they're going to have Holiday at second, Gunnar at short, and that puts Jordan Westburg at third. Mountcastle's still going to be at first. And even though they traded Austin Hayes, they went out and got another corner outfielder, and they traded Stowers too. So, but they got Austin Slater. So they got Kauser, Slater, Kierstad, Santander, and Mullins, 5 guys competing for 3 outfield spots, and then they have 2 guys platooning at DH, and a full infield led by one of the MVP favorites, Gunnar Henderson, or at least a guy who would be a favorite if not for Aaron Judge, and then the number one prospect in the game. So, like, there's no place I don't think we see Kobe Mayo, barring an injury, until 2025.
Yeah, I mean, this is step one of the Orioles trying to get rid of what is arguably the best farm system in all of baseball. There's just way too many talented guys waiting down in the farm system. So trade away a few of them and get an immediate upgrade for the postseason push.
Any idea what type of contract Mountcastle's on? Because none of those other guys are going anywhere this offseason. I mean, maybe an outfielder or two will go somewhere. But they're not trading Westberg, Gunnar, Holiday. 3 infield positions are filled. They could maybe have Mayo DH.
Yeah, it looks like it might be an arbitration year coming up for him. So, well,
Do they trade Mayo? Do they trade Mayo this offseason?
I don't know if they trade Mayo. I think he's their first baseman, but Samuel Basallo is first base DH, maybe.
Another guy they could have traded.
I mean, if you trust the reports, allegedly the Tigers wanted Holiday in a deal for Skubal.
Yeah, if you're the Tigers, do you trade Skubal for Holiday? Sorry, not Holiday.
Plus?
Sorry, no. Do you trade Skubal for Mayo and Basallo?
I would consider it, but I think they wanted Holiday.
Would you rather have Holiday or Mayo and Basallo?
I think I'd rather have Holiday.
Wow.
Which I don't know. I mean, we got Beavers coming up next year at some point too, so it's a fun time if you own any of these Orioles prospects. Or in the case of Zach Eflin, I finally have an Orioles pitcher.
There you go. Yeah, that one was kind of overlooked. Arguably, Zach Eflin's the best player traded at the deadline. If you look at the last 2 seasons combined, he's been the best because Flaherty was god-awful last year for the Orioles.
As an Eflin owner, I love it. And then, there's been a vocal crowd in the group me that was questioning why Trevor Rogers was the other pitcher that the Orioles acquired.
Okay, well, let's go. Okay, let's go through the Orioles rotation then, because it very much impacts a certain person on this call who's fighting for a wild card and has no rotation whatsoever to speak of. So they got Corbin 1, right? And presumably, Eflin slots 2. In?
I think Grayrod's 2, Eflin 3.
Okay, Grayrod 2, Eflin 3. They've had Albert. Is it Albert Albert what's his
Suarez?
Name? Suarez, yeah.
Suarez. He's been switching between starting pitcher, multi-inning reliever. I believe he's transitioning back into that multi-inning reliever role.
But he's been good.
Yep. I mean, your 4's Dean Kramer right now, and your 5 is Trevor Rogers, who was newly acquired.
Okay, right. But they have also so Cole Irvin's pitching multi-inning bullpen role.
I believe Irvin was a DFA today.
Okay, that would make sense. They got Sir Anthony Dominguez for the bullpen. And Gregory Soto for the bullpen. So
they
Bradish and Wells aren't pitching, and neither is Means. So Povich and McDermott probably done for the season with the Orioles, again barring injury. So kind of sucks for me.
Yeah, those are 2 pitchers that you've been using the past few weeks.
For
during
better
their
or
starts.
worse.
Right.
But they were a part of this year's plan. I had both of them in my personal top 10 in my prospects. Both of them were going to come up this year. Look. Jonathan Cannon was not expected to be part of the plan. Cade Povich and Chase McDermott were expected to be part of the plan. And Mom, can we have Cade Povich and Chase McDermott? And Mom tells me no. We have those guys at home, and at home we have Jonathan Cannon. So that's just how things roll sometimes. He was actually great tonight. Let's go over. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, I'm very curious how this Orioles rotation will pan out in 2025.
Who's on contract? I mean, without knowing that, obviously Burns and Grayrod, 1-2.
Yep, Eflin will be an Oriole next year, and then I believe Rogers. The reason why Norby and Stowers were part of that is because they get control.
Yeah, like 4 years of it or something like that. Yeah.
So really interesting to see how they'll try and implement Povich and McDermott into.
They might not. They might go out and sign a fifth starter.
Right.
They might sign Flaherty back.
So should be fun offseason trying to figure out all of that.
Let's go to Cleveland, JD. They acquired. I saw a graphic on MLB Network tonight. That was comparing Lane Thomas with Randy Arozarena the past 2 seasons. They're pretty much neck and neck. So, but Lane Thomas forever underappreciated out there over in Washington, but now he goes to a team which somewhat recently had the best record in baseball. So that's huge for the Guardians, who ever since they were good, going back to they made that World Series appearance against the Cubs in 2016, have always seemed to just have a weak outfield. They've had great bullpens with, going from Andrew Miller to, today you get Emmanuel Clace. They've had great rotations. But the outfield, they've never really been able to address. So they hit the trade market. They now have Stephen Kwan, and they acquired today or yesterday Lane Thomas. Now, real life perspective, this is great. Lane Thomas probably going to hit it in a premier position in that lineup around Joe Ram, Stephen Kwan. From an FTN perspective, Ben's on his last playoff legs, but he's getting massive performances from Xavier Edwards and maybe Lane Thomas to help keep him alive. Is this a happy ending for Ben? What does he have to look forward to this year with Lane Thomas and next year?
Ben loves Lane Thomas. I also love Lane Thomas. I think he's a good fantasy player for sure. Stolen bases, he could win that category by himself some weeks. He's that good. I like this move for the Guardians. Makes sense since they're contending immediately. It's a really I think speed was kind of missing from that lineup for the Guardians. I think only Jose Ramirez has 20 or more, and then Andres Jimenez might have. Andres Jimenez is second on that team, and is it Tyler Freeman? Maybe might be the only other person with double digits, and he can't really hit, but he can steal.
Does Stephen Kwan not?
No, I don't think Stephen Kwan has that many stolen bases, honestly. I think he's just been hitting really well, and that's about it. So, good for the Guardians to get out who leads the team in stolen bases right off the bat. If I'm Ben, I'm happy with it. Guardians are a much better team than the Nats.
All right. Plenty more to talk about. Let's go to that Milwaukee-Cincinnati trade. Frankie Montas going from the Reds to the Brewers, presumably not pitching in Great American Ballpark, but also just pitching for an organization that just seems to get everything out of its pitchers. Montas worth a pickup again in FTN. I'm pretty sure he's on the wire right now.
Yeah, I think so. Any Brewers pitcher is probably worth a speculative ad. Reds getting Joey Wiemer. That's Ben's favorite former prospect, Joey Weimer. So let's keep an eye out for Ben getting a Reds Weimer jersey.
Yeah. Also,
I saw something that the
probably
Brewers have used like 16 different starting pitchers this year. So, I mean, they just need healthy pitchers.
yeah, probably spells the end of DL Hall as well in the 2024 picture.
I mean,
Another guy for me
Gasser's
to
been injured, and then Jansen Junk, a forgotten FTN prospect, DFA'd.
Okay, there you go. Jansen Junk DFA. So, all right. So, what about I just had it in front of me. The Giants do not trade Blake Snell. That was maybe the other one along with Crochet where they premier starter, kind of Scooble, Flaherty, Snell, and Crochet were the ones that were being looked at today as like, are these big ones going to move? Obviously, only Flaherty moved. Snell did not move. So, however, the Giants did make a trade. They traded Alex Cobb. I don't think Alex Cobb is owned in FTN.
I don't think so either. I believe he's been injured for all year. I believe he's coming back soon, though. So that sounds right.
He's been a Jack guy for a long time. He's a favorite of Jack. Jack will pick him up and drop him, and no one else ever seems to interfere with that. Alex Cobb worth an ad for the remaining stretch in FTN?
I mean, once again, it's a Guardians pitcher. Cobb will immediately be in that starting pitching rotation. Have you seen like how well the Guardians pitching staff has been doing this year? They haven't been doing the best despite having a very good record. So it once again, yes, and I'm sure we'll see multiple FTN owners playing the streaming pickup with Alex Cobb. I think the most notable consequence of this trade affects you. Hayden Birdsong now has a spot in the rotation. Do we believe in Birdsong as a pitcher? If he's playing the Rockies, yes. If he's not playing the Rockies, that remains to be seen. But I think I would lean yes in that regard as well. I mean, Birdsong's going to be that guy. He's going to be huge for you down the stretch. You lose McDermott and Pavich for pitching, but here's Birdsong that's going to find a spot in your team.
I'll get my thoughts on Birdsong in 1 second. Before we move on to the Giants and Birdsong, just one last thing about Cleveland. Ben infamously traded Gavin Williams for pennies 2 weeks ago. Tonight, after last week getting 9 Ks in his last start, tonight he goes 5 innings, 2 hits, no runs, and 8 strikeouts. The guy is dominating right now since he's been traded to Graydon.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's an ace.
I don't know what Ben was doing. Okay, so sorry. Giants, Birdsong. I learned today. This is wild. Did you know Vogel? The word Vogel means bird in German, which means the Giants over the last 20 years have had 2 bird songs on their team. Because you guys might remember the Giants legend, that is Ryan Vogel's song that was right there in the like those Matt Cain, Tim Lincecum years. I just think it's wild that I don't think anyone else in MLB history has had the last name Vogelsong or Birdsong, and the Giants have had 2 bird songs basically. So, all right, but Birdsong. Here's the thing, JD. Birdsong is still very young. He is very, very, very young. He's pitched a lot of innings this year, preparing for a starter's role. The Giants are kind of out of it. Theoretically, they should play their young guys, but now we have the whole MLB prospect promotion incentive This feels like a guy pitching an AT&T ballpark for an entire year next year could push for the NL Rookie of the Year. Like, I kind of feel like I haven't seen anyone talk about it, but are the Giants really going to let this guy's rookie eligibility expire this year? It just seems crazy to me that they would do that in a season that means nothing.
I mean, they need someone to pitch, and I the prospect incentive thing is great, but at some point you just got to let the kids play.
The Giants are one of those organizations that are never bad enough to benefit from a top pick. They kind of just need quantity in the draft. I know I read reports that Birdsong will be called back up into the rotation. I'm just not sure it's going to be for more than 1 or 2 starts before he's shut down for the rest of the year. So I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts because he's clearly a talented pitcher. He's getting unbelievable whip numbers. The caveat being they're coming against the Rockies. But look, I think the future is bright for Birdsong, and although it would be great for my present, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm still a little skeptical of an everyday role.
Yeah, that's fair.
What did the Red Sox do? They did some stuff.
They traded away Nick York to the Pirates, and in return, Quinn Priester is now a Red Sox.
I just don't care. I just don't care. Quinn Priester is just not good. He might be good in a couple years.
Does not care about his former prospect, Quinn Priester. We've seen a sample size, I think, just under 100 MLB innings for Quinn Priester, and it honestly has not been that great.
You know what this guy feels like? He feels like Jonathan Cannon in terms of they just can't strike anyone out at the major league level. They might have good stuff that allows them to post above average to even good numbers in the minor leagues, and people have hyped them up a little bit before, but they just don't get strikeouts, and that just doesn't work in the modern game, and I really don't see that working at Fenway. I don't care about this trade for him. I care about this trade for Nick York. Nick Gonzalez versus Nick York 2025 spring training battle at second base. That's exciting. Unironically, that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really heard much about Nick York. I think he's been doing well this year, but it feels like Boston gave up the better piece in Nick York.
Yeah, both are former top 100 prospects.
I don't know what they're seeing in Quinn Priester, but
their rotation's been pretty good this year. They started off as the best rotation in baseball for the first month of the season. So I don't know. Is Priester going to do a bullpen role there? Just a long reliever?
He'd have to be. I don't see him starting right now. Although Paxton's back to being James Paxton.
He didn't have a great start today, I don't think.
No.
Remind me I heard all about the Red Sox had holes in their middle infield. No one knows what was going on with Trevor Story. They obviously let Xander Bogaerts go a couple years ago. I feel like I've heard nothing but the Red Sox have holes in the middle infield. I've heard David Hamilton's been tried there this year.
Hamilton steals bases. That's basically it.
Sedan Rafaela is maybe a short. Oh, Vaughn Grissom's there. What's the plan? I feel like they shouldn't be trading away middle infield prospects, and that's what Nick York is. That's my point.
I don't know if Vaughn Grissom has a future on the Red Sox. Christian Campbell has been that's my prospect. He has been a quick riser in that pipeline. Obviously, it just feels like they're waiting for Marcelo Meyer, really, at this point. I believe we'll probably see him next year, right?
We got to. Probably stretch run this year, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it feels like that's what they're waiting for. Yeah. their corners are fine with a healthy Tristan Casas at some point, and then Rafa Devers. It's that middle infield that they could really improve on second shortstop. And you're right. They have Sedan. Who knows what we have in Trevor Story anymore? He might be washed. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know why they're trading away middle infielders, but that's why I'm not a GM in the MLB here.
All right, let's see. The Cubs get Isaac Paredes. I'm fairly certain Paredes is not a rental. I think he should be around next year too. So he moves to Wrigley.
And I'm sure we all
Bellinger's
saw
there.
that his expected home runs decreases drastically with the short porch in Tropicana and the change to Wrigley. Jacob mentioned it before. Matt Shaw is their one of their top prospects. It feels like Paredes is going to be blocking him now.
Somebody's got to fill me in here. I swore Matt Shaw was a shortstop prospect, and last I checked, Paredes wasn't playing short.
Last I checked, Matt Shaw was third.
Okay, they may have quickly moved him after the draft to the third. I didn't know his fielding profile all that well. But okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's fine. I don't know. Kind of sucks for Perry. I feel like Paredes probably moves from a top 15 corner infield option next year in the league to outside the top 15.
Paredes has always felt like an underappreciated asset in fantasy baseball, but nobody's going out of their way to acquire him, even though he's probably worth acquiring if you really needed him. He's just kind of there, honestly. So I don't know if Perry really had any serious buyers for Paredes.
I'm not even saying he should have sold him. Our trade deadline happened before Paredes went. I'm just saying this kind of sucks for his value next year.
Right. Yep. I'm with you there.
God, I don't know. What else? Royals didn't really do anything interesting. They picked up a couple of minor pieces.
Yeah, it wasn't really. Yeah, it was a while ago.
I think I read the Rays. Okay, yeah. Talk about their returns. What did they get?
Yes, they get Brody Hopkins, who, if you listen to some or read some Mariners prospect info, that Brody Hopkins was one of their biggest risers in that farm. I think Fangraphs even had him as like one of their top pitchers in that farm. So we always have to pay attention to who the Rays pick up. More often than not, they are winning trades. So they added Brody Hopkins and also Aiden Smith, who I own in FTN as an outfielder. I'm really high on. Then they added a couple other pitchers. Dylan Lesko, now on the Rays. I think they added another Orioles pitcher via trade. Matt Horvath is going to the Rays. A couple Padres guys like Homer Bush. It's just interesting. Rays are going to be the Rays.
I think I read the Twins were the only team that didn't make a trade at the deadline. I don't really know if they had any pieces. They also kind of feel like in and out of buying. I feel like they've tried to buy a few years now. Probably just want to keep their remaining prospects around. It kind of made sense that they didn't do anything. Who's this Astros guy, dude? Bloss or whatever his name is? I've never even heard of this guy, and people are freaking out about him online.
So Jake Bloss had a lot of helium this season pitching in the minors. I think he had an ERA easily under 2 this year in the minors. He was actually called up for a few starts for the Astros here before he was traded. So Bloss was a prospect with a lot of helium. Loper Fido, who some argued was probably the Astros' top prospect this year goes. It's not like they were playing him much in the first place.
Which was a little confusing, if I'm being honest with you. That's a team that needs some youth.
Yes. They really need anything. I think their farm was decimated, and it went from probably the worst farm in baseball to still the worst farm in baseball. I really don't know if they know what they're doing with their prospects down there. When's the last time?
Remind me who they got for those guys.
Yusei Kikuchi, a rental. I think Will Wagner was also included by the Astros, who once again is one of their top prospects.
They haven't produced a prospect in a few years.
I couldn't tell you the last notable prospect they really have had in the last 5 years or so.
I feel like they got George Springer and that class up and then said, screw it, we're done for the next decade at development.
Well, they were also punished, but still. I really don't know.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Well, let's talk about the other side of the trade then, because the Blue Jays kept Vlad, who's on fire. They kept Bo, who is the opposite. And then they add Loper Fido. They have Addison Barger in the mix. Elvis Martinez will presumably be back after his PED suspension. They kind of are going to have a loaded infield. They did get rid of Isaiah Kiner Falafel Man.
Yep.
I don't even remember
Turner.
what team. I don't even remember. Yeah, so they did clear a couple spots. Is Loper Fido going to play every day down the stretch? Is Barger going to play every day down the stretch?
I really have no clue. Blue Jays are really active. So they added Jonathan Clace from the Mariners. That's an outfielder.
That was confusing.
They added... I'm not going to include everyone, but I'm going to include any FTN prospects. They added another outfielder that's owned in FTN, Yohendrick Panengo.
Yeah,
I believe you own him, right?
That's right.
So that's 2 outfielders they added. And then they went out and acquired from the Red Sox. None of these guys are owned, but probably the most notable one is Cutter Coffee.
Yeah, I've been seeing that guy's name forever.
Yep, and then we mentioned Bloss, Will Wagner, Loper Fido. A lot of outfielders that they added. It's really interesting. I don't know. I've never really been a believer in the Blue Jays farm system. I still don't really believe in them.
What did they do? They brought up all within a year, basically, Biggio and Vlad and Bichette and Alejandro. Oh, they traded Jansen to the Red Sox.
They also traded away Nate Pearson.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean...
Blue Jays are interesting, man. They kept their core, kind of. I don't know. Is Gossman back next year for the Blue Jays? I think he probably is. I think if he was on expiring, he definitely would have been dealt.
The Blue Jays' top 5 prospects in 2020. Nate Pearson, Jordan Groshans, Simeon Woods Richardson, Alek Manoah, Alejandro Kirk. If you go to 2021, Austin Martin is up there. And you go to 2022, Gabriel Moreno or Elvis Martinez, Otto Lopez, Leo Jimenez. 2023, Yasver Zulueta is up there. None of these guys really have panned out since the Vlad Bichette class.
Yasver is out over in the Reds bullpen getting called up and down every other day. Prospect news, Will Warren makes his debut for the Yankees tonight.
How did he do?
5.1, 4 runs, 2 walks, 6 hits, so just a hair over 1 whip with 6 Ks, which is nice. It was at the Phillies. That's never easy. It is what it is, but this was just to fill in for Garrett Cole, who had general body fatigue. So probably nothing, but good to see another debut. Pedro Leon gets his first MLB contract, gets called up by the Astros. Good for you, JD.
The Loper feeder replacement, and I don't think he played tonight.
Well, he's on the roster regardless. I'll be keeping Miguel Vargas around. He begins his White Sox career 0-for-4 tonight. I'm sure better days are ahead for the young kid. Arizona, I don't think really did anything notable.
Man, Miguel Vargas. What could have been?
Eric Fetty on St. Louis.
Yep.
He's been outperforming his expecteds all season. Presumably has a better team around him now. Maybe there's some balance there. He's probably still worth rostering for Vinny and starting, although I don't know if I'd start him in every match.
Absolutely. Fettuccine is absolutely rosterable.
We get Tommy Pham. He had a pinch hit home run tonight.
You got rid of Dylan Carlson. That experiment is over.
To the Rays. The Rays are just going to Randy us all over again. So that's great. Washington traded away Lane Thomas. Who did Washington get from Cleveland?
Clemmy was the most notable guy.
A Graydon pitcher from last year's draft. Many people said he was the best long-term high school pitcher. Like there was Noble Meyer and Thomas White, and then after that it was like Charlie Soto and Alex Clemmy, and this dude throws like 101, and he's like a 17-year-old twig. I feel like I don't know. We'll know in 2033 whether or not this trade worked out. Did we hit? What did Oakland? They didn't even have anything to trade. They didn't trade Rooker, did they?
No, Rooker was not traded, and I don't know if Mason Miller was seriously being considered at all, but that injury basically sealed the deal.
I know the Angels traded Urseg.
Or the A's traded Urseg.
The A's traded. Who did the Angels trade? No, the Angels traded Urseg.
No, Urseg was on the A's. The Angels traded away Estevez. Estevez went to the Phillies. The notable return was, I think, Jack prospect, George Clausen, another pitching prospect with a lot of helium this year. Honestly, I think only one Halos prospect is worth owning, and it's Caden Dana, in my biased opinion. I mean, the Halos just love rushing up everyone, and it just doesn't really turn out that well.
I would disagree. Reed Detmers has shown tons of flash and promise, and Nolan Schanuel.
Where is he right now? He's not in the majors.
He'll be back up. We've not lost faith, and Nolan Schanuel is having a great season.
He is.
They and then I think their guy they just got in the draft, Vinny, got him.
Christian Moore.
Moore.
We wouldn't be shocked if we saw him tomorrow. Mike Trout with a setback. I mean, yeah. Sean is suffering. What does Sean do with Mike Trout going forward?
Can't sell him. He's like Bichette. The goods are so damaged that you can't trade them.
Can you
get
get something out of damaged goods?
Are you paying $20 ban for Mike Trout?
I'm not. No, but maybe someone else will. And I don't think Sean would sell him for 20. Let's be honest.
So there you go. Yeah, he just keeps them. The Pirates made a couple of minor moves. Like we talked about one of them, nothing too exciting. I had another team. Shit, who was it? Oh, Texas. What did Texas do? Because people were questioning, are they buyers or sellers? I feel like they didn't do anything.
They got Shafeen from the Tigers, so they added to their bullpen.
Is that how you say it? Is Shafeen?
I think it is. Chafin. And then they also sold Michael Lorenzen for some prospect.
Yeah, Lorenzen. He went
to the Royals. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the Rangers just have way too many guys now. I mean, Tyler Mally's coming back soon. Scherzer came back recently. Cody Bradford came back. He's now, I think, multi-inning reliever. They just had too many guys, so it makes sense that they would send one out. I also think they got a catcher from the Tigers, too. So, yeah, a catcher and a bullpen acquisition. That's what the Rangers did.
I think we hit every MLB team except for two. The two teams at the top of the NL East, Philadelphia and Atlanta. I think people were expecting Atlanta to be more active. They weren't. They made a couple of moves in advance of the deadline.
Soler and Luke Jackson is notable. Soler's interesting. I think they want to play him in the outfield, and I don't know if he's played the outfield once this year.
He was always a bad defender, and this is two guys going back to Atlanta. But he's a power hitter, and Atlanta's not been the juggernaut we kind of expected them to be for one reason or another. Injuries may have something to do with it. They probably have lost their 5 best everyday players to injury. So they make some minor moves. They didn't want to mortgage the farm for what kind of feels like a lost season. That kind of makes sense. They'll just regroup and be prepared for 2026. The Phillies, I'm sure they got some bullpen guys, probably.
Yeah,
Did they do anything?
Like I said, they added Carlos Estevez, the closer from the Halos. I don't know if he'll close. He might be like a 7th, 8th inning guy. But they also did get rid of Sir Anthony Dominguez, and they got rid of Gregory Soto. So kind of interesting. Shipping out 2 relievers, adding a different guy. Helps improve their farm. Oh, Bergola was also gone too. The Phillies shipped out Bergola to the White Sox.
Yeah, he was an interesting international prospect a couple of years ago. Was sitting in Joe's farm, and now he's in one of the 3 expansion teams' farms. Couldn't tell you which one. But yeah, he gets traded to the White Sox, Marlins.
Yeah.
White Sox, some bad team.
I think we've covered most of it. I want to leave you with one last thought here. You were texting me right before this pod, so it's a very interesting question. Who has the worst farm right now between these two teams, the White Sox and the Marlins? Because we were both kind of looking at the farms. I think you texted me about the Marlins, and it's like their farm system is, despite all of their moves, looks pretty bad still.
So does the White Sox. That's what happens when you trade actual major leaguers, talented major leaguers that other teams actually want. Like, good teams want these players. So these are probably, if you're a bad team, these are probably some of your better players. And you trade them, and there's 0 top 100 prospects moved today. Yeah, your farm system outlook's not going to change all that much. No, their farms suck. I mean, are the White Sox really going to contend with Jacob Gonzalez as their future best everyday player? And are the Marlins really going to contend with, okay, their pitching might be good, but we talked about their offense and what their 1 through 7 hole hitters look like as early as 2025, and it ain't pretty. Xavier Edwards might be their best player.
Yeah, I mean, MLB obviously hasn't finished updating all of these trades. It looks like the White Sox acquisitions: Joral Perez, Alexander Albertus, 13 and 14 on the White Sox farm. I think these
You're
guys were
already a
like
bad farm. They are already a bad farm, and their acquisitions can't even make their top 10.
in Bergola, 15.
18,
So there you
15?
go. They added 13, 14, 15, and then a bunch of guys not in their top 30 for prospects.
Well, the most
That's
interesting guy the White Sox acquired was a guy who's not no longer a prospect, Miguel Vargas.
Right. The Marlins, new number 2 prospect Robbie Snelling, number 5 prospect Norby, number 6 Agustin Ramirez, number 7 Davison De Los Santos, number 8 Major, number 10 Dylan Head. Actually, no, Head was acquired earlier in the year. 11 Jared Cerna, 12 Graham Pauley, 17 Jakob Marcy. Wasn't he earlier though?
Yeah, I think some of these guys are maybe underranked a little bit.
20
I feel like
Jun Seok Shim.
we're going to see very shortly, probably a
Yep.
week from now, an
Yep.
update to not just the top 100 that includes the draft prospects, but probably updates to every team's top 30.
Yeah, that's going to be a big change.
I don't have anything else to add. I don't know if I think probably Jazz Chisholm is the biggest needle mover for any team remaining this year in FTN on what happened. Yep. Sean, I think, really needed that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Lane Thomas hits 40 RBIs the rest of the season, or 50 RBIs, and Ben sneaks in, and we're talking about that. But not too many impactful moves. I think that was, when the dust settled, I think a lot of people had that prevailing opinion around MLB that it was a whole lot of flash, but not a whole lot of substance. So it's just the modern day MLB where people hold on to their prospects, for better or worse. Man, I do think it was interesting that the Mariners made that trade to trade away Jonathan Clace when they need offensive help across the board. I don't get it.
I don't know if Clace was that good. So
we really know if prospects are good until they get there.
Right, that's
Point
true.
is,
I mean, he had a very small sample size. Man, Padres. Could you even name the Padres' top 5? Minus Ethan Salas and Leah Dallas DeVries as their top 2. This farm got destroyed.
Every name that pops into my head, they're on another team. I thought Jackson Merrill. Well, he's graduated. I thought like Yairo Iriarte, and I thought Major, and I thought Paulie.
Gone.
I'm sure. I'm sure Cash Mayfield will be like number 3 when they update.
He honestly may. I think you got to steal out of that now. In hindsight,
I don't know. Who is it? Who's there 3, 4, 5?
Ryan Bergert, Austin Krob, and Victor Lizarraga. All of them are pitchers.
Haven't heard of a single one of them. None of them are owned in FTN. I bet they're all outside the MLB's top 400 prospects.
Bergert has an ERA over 6. Krob has an ERA above 5.5. And Lizarraga has an ERA at 3.78.
What levels are they in?
All in AA. That's their AA farm right there.
Preller ball, baby.
Love it. Wouldn't ask for anything more.
All right, let's end this pod. I've been yawning for like 30 minutes. I'm tired.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, congratulations for listening to us ramble.
It's what this
Yeah.
was. All right.
God.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.